All right, hey folks, we are hanging out on a snow day, which is kind of cool. um, I'm gonna go ahead and start back to the beginning of the Scopes monkey trial, just to kind of because we just kind of introduced it really quick the other day for one class, and I didn't do that for the other class. It's easier just to kind of lump you both together. Sorry. So all right, so during the Progressive Era, during that early 1900s, the the universities and academics and science-minded folks are more and more embracing the theory of evolution. And the theory means something different in common parlance than it means in academics. You've probably heard that before, but a theory in academics means something that has proven, that has solid evidence. Theory in common language is just like, hey, I have an idea. That's not the same thing. So a theory has some solid evidence behind it. So anyway, so in the universities and in the public schools, in science class, some folks are starting to teach evolution. And that worries a lot of people, a lot of very religious minded people, no matter what you believe. Rock and roll, cool, but a lot of very religious minded people that have their own uh, ideas of the origin of life that goes against that. And then among different religions, there's all kinds of different, ideas of the origins of life. I know of a fun religion that claims that the universe was created last Tuesday. Now, you can't prove it wasn't created last Tuesday because all the memories in your head and the fossils in the ground could have been created and put there by some deity, a deity, according to this certain religion. So, but evolution is going to go with science, and we're teaching evolution in science class. We should not teach, religion in science class. And so, this worries a lot of people, though, and so a lot of states are going to pass laws contrary to this, and this is from a lot of people that would consider themselves fundamentalists. Fundamentalists tend to, for Christian denominations, fundamentalists regard the Bible as absolute truth in all matters. So, according to the Bible, the world was created in 7 days, complete, or 6 days. Humans were created on the sixth day, and all that kind of stuff. And that's absolutely the case for the fundamentalist crowd. And so, among the fundamentalists, that a lot of them are in government at the time, they are going to pass laws outlawing the teaching of evolution in science class or in any classes. So, Tennessee in particular passes a law called the Butler Act. And the Butler Act was by State Representative John Butler, and he heard that, in his words, and I'm kind of paraphrasing this a little bit, but he heard that evil college professors were teaching evolution and turning all these good little Christian children into atheists. And we do that, like, constantly. Professors are the bad guys. We are corrupting you, kind of a thing. So, Tennessee, John Butler writes this law. Tennessee is going to adopt this law and sign it into, or Butler Act, and then sign it into law. Sorry. And it says that it forbids any, quote, any theory that denies the story of the divine creation of man as taught in the Bible. So you can only teach, the emergence of man as taught in the Bible. You cannot teach evolution or any other idea, just Christian Bible. Like my religion example that I had a few minutes ago of the universe being created last Tuesday, not in the Christian Bible, so I would not be able to teach that in any class, particularly science class. So, all right. Let's see if we can change slides here. That's not the right mouse. It's confusing when you don't have your stuff. All right. So, in the town, very small town in Tennessee of Dayton, uh, the community there decides that this law sounds interesting, and they decide to challenge it. Now, here's what's fun to me anyway. There is this idea at the time, sort of the perception at the time and the perception that we have today, that John Scopes, the guy that taught evolution in science class and biology class in Dayton, Tennessee, was the sort of maverick rebel and stuff, and the regressive people of Dayton, Tennessee did not want him to teach evolution in science class. Didn't really happen that way. Uh, Dayton at the time, and this is 19. I think it's 1928-ish. I don't have the date of the trial. The law passes in 1925, so it's right around there. But Dayton, Tennessee is struggling financially. At the time, it's a coal mining town, and coal, the value of coal swings, and the value of coal right now is way, way down, and so the town is struggling financially. And so a group of guys get together at the local drugstore, and they heard about this law, and they think, you know what? And I'm not joking. They get together at the local drugstore and hatch this plan. If we get somebody to agree to just say that they taught evolution, and then we can have a big, massive trial here in Dayton, that's going to bring the press. That's going to bring people that are interested in the trial. We will fill up the hotel. We'll fill up the restaurants. We'll have people down here in the drugstore at the soda fountain buying all kinds of snacks and cokes and stuff like that. And so they do this to try to get people to come to Dayton. This is just let's attract attention and stuff. So it's not really about the whole idea of teaching evolution. So the drugstore guys call down John Scopes. He's one of the local high school teachers. Scopes is a coach. Like, he taught biology one day because the biology teacher was sick. And they ask him, hey, have you ever taught evolution in class? And he's like, I don't know. I had the notes, lecture notes, and I just read them. I don't remember even what I was talking about. And they're like, okay, well, fine. Would you agree to say that you taught evolution? And he's like, yeah, okay, give me a Coke and a, Twinkie. So they talk him into admitting that he taught evolution. He is arrested. They sort of formally arrest him. They take him down to the courthouse, and he bonds out and stuff. So it's not really, he's not roughed up. There's a movie called Inherit the Wind. It's an interesting movie, but they kind of, Scopes is actually arrested, and they kind of haul him down to the local jail. That doesn't happen. But he has broken the law. He is entered into the court system, right? So the ACLU, the American Civil Liberties Union, agrees to defend John Scopes. You've probably heard of the ACLU, at least in passing, the American Civil Liberties Union. They are a First Amendment organization. That's their thing. If you have a First Amendment problem, and they deem it, like a serious enough sort of thing, the First Amendment will sometimes get involved in your case to help with defense and stuff like that. And so this is clearly a First Amendment problem, that John Scopes is not allowed to teach evolution. And so the school system, the city, is trampling on his First Amendment rights. And so the ACLU agrees to come in and defend him. Now, They are going to hire Clarence Darrow, and the order of the guys is out of order just because I'm talking. But they are going to hire Clarence Darrow. And Clarence Darrow is, holy cow, a phenomenal defense attorney. He has defended some very, very, very famous people and got them acquitted or at least got the charges reduced. Uh, Among his most famous, and you don't have to get them down, but among his most famous clients at this point are Leopold and Loeb. Leopold and Loeb were a couple of rich kids, and they were very, very wealthy. They were bored, and so they decided that they wanted to kill somebody just to see if they could get away with it. They didn't have a grudge against anybody really. They weren't having financial problems. Nothing. They just wanted to kill somebody to experience that, but also to see if they could get away with it. And so they kidnapped a neighbor kid that was like, I don't know, a couple of years younger than them. I think, and I'm not looking it up right now, but I think they were like late teens. And the kid that they kidnapped was like, I don't know, 12, 13. So a little bit younger than them, but not too awful far. They kidnap this kid. They murder him. They do a thankfully, thankfully, they do a terrible job of covering up the murder, and it's really, really super obvious that they do it. And so the state goes after the death penalty for them, and Clarence Darrow is going to be their defense attorney, and he gets them life in prison. And and it's like, this is a slam dunk case. This I'm not a lawyer, and I could have, conceivably maybe argued this case and got them the death penalty. Uh, but Darrow is able to get them life in prison, and however you feel about that, if you think death penalty or life in prison is kind of an easier route for an incarcerated person, Clarence Darrow is able to get that reduced. And that's one of the few cases that he didn't get an acquittal on, because it wasn't going to happen. So Darrow, this super, super famous, accomplished attorney, is going to be there for the defense. Also, this is really, really super cool because I only found this out last semester, and this is phenomenally hilarious and awesome. And you've got some outside assignments to do here. In addition to Clarence Darrow, Scopes and the drugstore guys are going to hire a local attorney, a local Tennessee attorney, and his name is it's a male attorney, and I'm stressing that for right now, but his name is Sue Kerr Hicks. Sue, like the woman's name. Kerr, Kerr. Hicks is Hicks. Mr. Hicks, his mother died either during childbirth or shortly after childbirth, and his Mr. Hicks's dad really, really wanted to honor his wife and honor his son's mother, in her struggles and stuff like that, and losing her life, and so he named his son Sue. So the dad, Mr. Hicks, has a boy named Sue. And I'm kind of looking at you, kind of like, hey, ringing some bells. Now, hopefully you've heard a song, A Boy Named Sue. If you haven't, that's one of your assignments. Go and look that up. Johnny Cash, A Boy Named Sue. Several years after this trial goes down, we're off on a tangent, but tangents are cool. Several years after this trial goes down, Mr. Hicks, Sue Kerr Hicks, was giving a talk, a lecture on this trial and attorneying in general. And out in the audience was Shel Silverstein. You're like, who the heck is Shel Silverstein? Shel Silverstein is a poet. He comes to pretty heavy prominence in the 1960s and 1970s, 1980s. Um, if you've read poetry book Where the Sidewalk Ends, you've read Shel Silverstein. A really famous poem of Silverstein's is Sarah Sylvia Cynthia Stout. Uh, First stanza of this, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but hopefully it rings bells. Sarah Sylvia Cynthia Stout would not take the garbage out. She'd scour the pans and or scour the pots and scrub the pans, candy the yams and spice the hams. And though her daddy would scream and shout, she simply would not take the garbage out. Hopefully you've heard Sarah Sylvia Cynthia Stout. If not, another assignment. So, Boy Named Sue by Johnny Cash, and Sarah Sylvia Cynthia Stout by Shel Silverstein. Well, Silverstein is in the audience listening to Sue Care Hicks give this talk and all the thing. He's just sitting there like, because I would do the same thing. He's just kind of sitting there like, this is a boy named Sue. There's a man up there and he's named Sue. I wonder why the heck his dad would name him Sue. And so he writes a poem, A Boy Named Sue, and that gets covered by lots and lots of musicians and stuff. But the best one, and this is empirically true, is Johnny Cash's version of A Boy Named Sue. So anyway, cool stuff. Remember that because it's weird and might show up on tests. The prosecution. Prosecution is going to go with an equally famous William Jennings Bryan. Bryan is an absolutely accomplished attorney. Also, he has run for president several times, never won, but he's gotten close. And he's just an outstanding litigator as well. So you've got two really heavy hitters and a guy with an interesting name that are going to try this case, and it works. When this goes down, Dayton is absolutely packed. The hotels are full, the restaurant's full. People are down in the drugstore hanging out because it sells refreshments. The guys at the drugstore, I don't know where you buy a monkey, but they bought a live monkey to hang out at the probably in a cage, but but they got a live monkey to hang out in front of the drugstore to kind of, increase traffic and get people stirred up and stuff. And it absolutely works. The courthouse is packed. They were literally concerned about the weight of the people, the floor being able to support the weight of the people. So some people are going to be absolutely have to hang out outside of the building and try to listen to things. This makes national news. But John T. Scopes is found guilty because he did. The Butler Act says you're not allowed to teach any sort of origin of humanity outside of the Christian Bible. He did that. He taught evolution, science. He didn't teach the last Tuesday thing, but that would have been against the law too. And so John Scopes, you don't have to get this down, but he is fined $100, which, 1925 is a decent amount of money. The state ultimately is going to throw out that decision on appeal because it's a really minor technicality. The judge in the case assessed the fine, and what was supposed to happen in this case is the judge was supposed to have the jury assess the fine and give them a range. And the judge assessed the fine instead of turning that over to the jury. Not supposed to happen. And so this decision was thrown out. Tennessee does not retry this because, and here's the heavy thing, underline stars and wave your hands around in the screen. The judge, or Tennessee doesn't retry this because Dayton, Tennessee, and the fundamentalists and these people that are anti-science, not wanting science taught in the science class, are just ridiculed throughout the United States, especially outside of the South. Down here, we're a little bit more religious than other parts of the country. And so outside of the South, definitely, holy cow, just lots and lots of just ridicule, hardcore ridicule. And so Tennessee does not want to do this again. The state doesn't want to fool with this. Now, there's two impacts of this that you do need to get down, and then we'll kind of trace this a little bit way far into the future, in your lifetimes maybe. You were one when the second thing happened. But two impacts of the Scopes monkey trial is one, states that have this on the books either quietly rescind these laws. They'll get rid of these laws quietly, not making a big deal about it. We're just going to, let's not say nothing about this. So they'll either quietly rescind these laws or they won't enforce them. And so Tennessee has the Butler Act on the books that could be enforceable until 1967, but they don't repeal it until 1967, but it's not enforced, So, so that's one of the results of Scopes is this is embarrassing. It looks bad. It sort of brings a lot of ridicule on these ideas. And so that's one thing. Either not enforce or they'll repeal these laws. The second thing, though, and I usually ask this in class, is the purpose of textbooks, purpose of textbook companies. Sorry, textbooks they don't have I don't know. The purpose of textbook companies is, number one, to make money. It's a company. It's a for-profit company. If they do not make a profit, they go under. And so the primary motivation for textbook companies is to make money. They are producing a product, and probably 14th down the list is to provide an education to folks. And that's just my take on textbook companies. But so their primary goal is to turn a profit. And so they want to sell as many textbooks as possible. Well, states and local school boards that are very, very kind of religiously oriented do not want to cover evolution. And so also really quietly, also really quietly, textbook companies are going to remove mentions of evolution from their biology textbooks. Look, I take out evolution out of my biology textbooks. I can sell textbooks in Dayton, Tennessee. I can sell textbooks in Texas. I can sell textbooks in Alabama. All of these places, stereotypically in the Deep South that are opposed to teaching evolution. Well, I'm not, you can cover it in class and lecture, but I don't have it in my textbook. And so I'm not going to get the school board to pass on my textbook, hopefully. So, so we still two things. one that's just like, whoa, kind of a weird take there, man. In 2004, and you don't have to get this one down, but in 2004, Dayton, Tennessee pops up in the news again. In 2004, Dayton, Tennessee announced that they were going to ban gay people from living in their town. They announced this at as a city ordinance. It got picked up on the news. It got picked up on the national news that this town, in 2004 was saying, hey, we don't want any gay people to live in our town. And they, again, got made fun of mercilessly. And within like 2 days, they really, really made a big effort to walk that back because they knew that was not a popular take to have. And so 2 days later, they were on the national news, like, no, 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 no. We were just messing around. Jimmy Schmitz. Jimmy Schmitz is cool. Fred. Fred's like, he's like our kind of villain a lot in class. Fred. Fred was over there, and he was just, talking weird, and somebody hit him in the head with a brick earlier, and we don't know what's wrong with him. So, but they tried to lay it off like, it was just something that somebody mentioned during a town city council meeting or something like that, and it wasn't even actually considered. No, they actually passed this, and then they had to walk it back, but they tried to play it off. Now, something you do need to get down though, we still grapple with this, okay? And again, I said this at the first part of this. Whatever you believe spiritually and all that stuff, that's awesome, But science class is science class, and that's a different class. um, but we still get this stuff that religious groups try to insert themselves into science class, and you have faith, but you don't have hard evidence for this. And there's a difference, and that's honestly, it's okay. But in the early 2000s, we got this thing popping up called intelligent design. And it's religious groups that were trying to say, okay, all right, so evolution's a thing. And you have, actual fossils that prove evolution and stuff, and DNA evidence is starting to pop up, and we can see links, in human evolution and stuff. There are, Homo sapiens running around like me, honestly, seriously, me, running around with Neanderthal DNA, and so we have different lines of humanity kind of stuff, and that shows this. But we think, and we're going to push for that, even though that's sort of has concrete proof that there has to be some sort of divine being, there has to be some sort of God behind it. And so they push for this, like this idea of intelligent design, that okay, evolution did happen, but some sort of creator kind of kicks the ball rolling and nudges it in different ways and stuff, so that we do get humanity and zebras. And so in 2005, the Kansas School Board required intelligent design to be taught in biology class. Dude, you don't have proof of that. In evolution, we're not, scientists are not saying that, this is why this happened. This is, there's not some kind of divine being, or there is some kind of divine, there's no proof for or against. It just, this happens this way, and things, move this in direction. And so the school board's like, you have to teach intelligent design. And so this made, kind of the national news again. And again, the response is ridicule. And honestly, ridicule is kind of an effective tool sometimes. And thing you got to get down, in 2005, when they do this, a individual named Bobby Fischer created the flying spaghetti monster religion. And he said, look, if we have to teach intelligent design, if we have to teach that there are there's a divine creator, some sort of a God that nudged humanity and nudged the universe into being and all this kind of stuff, then we're going to cover that too. And he wrote the Gospel of the Flying Spaghetti Monster. And he really, really pushed for, including the flying spaghetti monster into biology class. Look, if you're going to include your deity in biology class, I want flying spaghetti monster in biology class. And this, sort of parody religion grew and grew and grew. And it's honestly, it's got kind of a following now, which is kind of an interesting deal. So we still, history is a flat circle kind of a thing, like I've said in class before. All right, let's see if we can change the PowerPoints while we're doing this, because that's some fun stuff. I think we can. All right, so we are going to get into the Great Depression. That there is just the outline. Don't worry about it. I've kind of been removing outlines as I go, and sometimes I forget. So, all right, we are going to move into the Great Depression. Here's a thing. This is an essay question. This particular essay question reads, what are the causes of the Great Depression and issues that, sorry, sorry, what are the causes of the Great Depression, which is this slide, and then what are some issues that extended the Depression or made it worse, however you want to word that. So, um, all right, so far as issues that caused the Depression, we are talking 1929 in the United States, and this will sort of ripple out to the rest of the world, unfortunately, because we are in a global market at this point. Uh, the stock market right now in the spring summer of 1929, the stock market is dramatically overvalued. The You don't have to get this down, but RCA, Radio Corporation of America, they are still around today. If you bought into some RCA stock at the first of the year, that stock has gone up 400%. That's insane. Like if you have an IRA right now or some kind of a retirement account and your retirement account grows by about 12 to 15% ish, that's really good, you know? So 400% is crazy. So the stock market is really, really, really super, super overvalued. And it's in a bubble. Bubbles pop. Now, one thing that is contributing to that overvaluation of the stock market is that a lot of people are doing something called buying on margin. If you buy on margin, you don't put up all of the money for whatever stock that you're trying to buy. You put up 10% and then you take a loan out. Holy cow, don't do this. This is a bad idea. You take a loan out and the bank gives you 90% of the value of that stock. Now, if we're talking about RCA and RCA is going up 400% and you buy, hopefully when RCA is at sort of a neutral value and then you buy in, you did this on margin and RCA goes up 400%, the way a lot of people were thinking at the time is, look, I will buy RCA, it'll go up a lot. I'll sell the stock, I'll pay the bank back what I owe them, which is not very much, and then I've walked away with a crazy amount of money. And so as long as the stock market keeps going up like that, buying on margin is, an idea. And most people, and I know this sounds weird because you know, within the last we've seen a stock market recession back in 2008 2009, and during the pandemic 2020 we also saw a second drop in the market for a little while, and then it's kind of it was climbing back out. um, so as long as the market though is going up, this works great. And a lot of people at the time thought, hey, we are completely out of market swings. The market is just going to go up and up and up and up, and it's never going to come down, that we're never going to have a market correction. So, yes, buying on margin, that's a sound move. Don't do that again. Bad idea. The market swings. And so lots of people are buying into the market and it's just going up because there's so many people investing. And a thing that you guys have seen, which was kind of interesting, maybe if you were paying attention to it, I don't know if you were or not, but a couple of years ago, GameStop had this happen. Just this one single stop. GameStop has been struggling. Sorry. Ever since, we're downloading games, you don't go to the store hardly and purchase physical games anymore. I mean, you can, but it's kind of, there's not that many, and not really many people do that. But we're mostly downloading games and stuff. So companies like GameStop have really been struggling with that transition. And so their stock was down super, super cheap. And a couple of years ago, a bunch of people on Reddit uh, heard that there was going to be a short sale on GameStop. And I honestly can't wrap my head around why the heck that works the way it's supposed to. So I'm not going to try to explain it because I don't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. But GameStop, the value of GameStop stock was really low. And so a lot of people on Reddit started buying. And when a bunch of people start buying, a lot of other people notice that they're buying. And so the value goes up and other people start buying. And so GameStop got pretty high, for a bit. And then, a lot of people sold because the bubble was about to pop, and the bubble popped, and the stock price went back down to somewhat, normal what it was valued at actually. So GameStop was overvalued, people bought in, and then it collapsed. GameStop is a great, parallel to the stock market right here. So October of 1929, some people start realizing that the stock market is overvalued, it's overinflated, this bubble is about to pop, we got to get out. And so people start selling. And when some people start selling, other people start noticing, and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got to get out of the market or I'm going to lose everything. And then other people start selling, and so the market just crashes and probably goes to undervalued at that point. And so that's the big, cause of the depression. Stock market is overvalued, people buying on margin, it's overinflated, and then people start to get out of the market, panic selling, and that causes the stock market to crash. Now, if that was bad, and it was gonna be bad, but the next things make it worse. And so there's four things that make this worse than it actually was going to be. It was going to be bad, but this is stuff that piles on the stupid. so, so we've got that one thing, and then these are four things that extend the depression. One big one is mistakes by the Federal Reserve. So the Federal Reserve today and at the time sets interest rates. They set what's called prime interest rate. This is the interest rate that banks borrow money from the Federal Reserve at. And when you have a market crash or when you have a market slowdown, the Federal Reserve historically will drop interest rates. When you guys, at the beginning of the pandemic, the markets shut down. There was not a whole heck of a lot of commerce going on. We weren't going out to restaurants. We weren't going out to entertainment venues. The only thing that was really going on was we were staying at home playing video games, right? A lot of us, some of us had to go to work, and that was worrisome for those folks. But for the most part, life just sort of paused. And so the markets came to a screeching halt. There wasn't a lot of commerce going on. And so at the opening of the pandemic, the Federal Reserve dropped interest rates to just rock bottom. I mean, you could get a mortgage at the beginning of the pandemic for like a 2% interest rate. It was like 2.5% interest rate. It was insane. Today, the markets are recovering, and I think a 30-year interest rate, I think it's about 7.5, possibly 8% if you have good credit, somewhere in there. But when the market shuts down, the Fed should lower interest rates. Well, I don't know what they were thinking, but during the Great Depression, at a time when you want to lower interest rates and increase the money supply, increase money rolling in circulation so that people are buying durable goods and spending lots of money, they raise the interest rate. And that makes it more expensive to borrow money. It decreases the money in circulation. And so the Fed further puts the brakes on the economy. Right when you want to lower the interest rates as much as possible, the Fed's like, no, let's lean on the brakes a little bit more, and so that makes things worse because we're further slowing down the economy already. So the second thing that extended the Depression is the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act. Now, on the surface, if you're not thinking at all, this makes sense. If you aren't putting any thought into this, into what might happen, consequences of your actions, this makes sense. This seems cool, logical, completely, just like buying on margin. But if you are thinking just a teeny bit, holy cow, this is a bad idea. Don't do this. So, the United States in the Depression starts in October of 1929. In 1930, the United States is going to pass the Hawley-Smoot Tariff Act. With Herbert Hoover as president, is going to sign off on this. Lots and lots of economists beat down the door to the White House, and they're like, man, you can't do this. This is a horrible, horrible idea. But if you're not thinking, we're in the middle of the Depression. We want to encourage Americans to buy American-made goods. If we get Americans to buy American-made goods, we can keep Americans employed. We do not need to buy radios from England or radios from France. That helps out their economy. That we're in the Depression, we need to think about ourselves. We need to think about our people. And so we need to encourage Americans to buy American-made goods. And so the United States is going to put, until recently, the highest tariff on any imported goods in American history. And this was the case until very, very recently. And so anything that is imported to the United States, we are going to put this really, really high tariff on. And the people that pay the tariff are the consumers. And so people in the United States are like, hey, this radio from England now has a $15 surcharge on it. I'm not buying a radio from England for $15 more. I will buy an American radio. And so, yeah. But the last bit on there, other countries are going to do the same thing. So, okay, you Americans, you don't want to buy our radios. Well, we don't want to buy your radios. And so France is going to put a tariff on American-made goods. England is going to put a tariff on American-made goods. And so at a time when you want access to as many customers as you possibly can get, because we need to sell to whoever we can get a hold of if they will buy, we're further going to shut down the global marketplace. And so the United States really kind of, we're not interested in selling to anybody else is the way that it's going to play out. It wasn't intended that way, but no one could really talk some of the folks in Congress as well as Hoover out of this. And so it shuts down the international markets. The United States no longer is selling stuff abroad because we put tariffs on foreign goods and then other countries put tariffs on American goods. And so further shuts down the economy. Let's hit the brakes even more. Pull up that emergency brake. Let's just get it all shut down. All right. Now, this is not a policy. This is just how things happen. Wealthy people get more wealthy. Poor people we kind of get a couple more dollars. Working class people, we get a couple more dollars. That's about it. So prior to the Depression, and this used to be true until very recently, uh, prior to the Depression, the wealthy people controlled an insane amount of the money supply. The 1% of the United States, the super, super wealthy people, controlled most of the money. They held most of the wealth. And the reason why I say it's true until very recently, it was true at the time, you know, but currently, right now, 2025, February 19th, it's snowing outside. The wealthy people today control an even bigger share of the money supply, the wealth of the United States than they did prior to 1929. So we're in a more extreme position today than we were in 1929. So history is a flat circle. Um, so the ultra wealthy control most of the money supply. And so, man, when you get into the Depression, those people, they took a hit, but they're okay. John D. Rockefeller, J.P. Morgan, and those guys, Andrew Carnegie, they're like, okay, well, I maybe won't buy an island this week, you know. But the big thing is, though, that the working class, the laboring class, the middle class, whatever you want to use to describe that, the non-fabulously crazy wealthy of the United States, we are the drivers of the economy, and a kind of person that I like that I like to bring up as an example is Jay Leno. Jay Leno's not super, super crazy wealthy, but Jay Leno owns a lot of cars. Jay Leno has a car museum out in Los Angeles. And so he's got 40 or 50 cars probably. I don't know how many he's got, but he's got a jet bike, which he crashed a couple of years ago and was burned pretty bad. Thankfully he recovered okay. But Jay Leno, this one person, owns 40 or so cars. Okay. Well, in all of my classes at Calhoun this semester, I have about 100 students. Okay. So all of us together, we have 100 cars. And we are going to replace our cars because Jay Leno's cars just sit in that museum and aren't being driven and aren't really having a lot of wear and tear on them and not being used as daily drivers and are not going to be replaced, in several years. And so we own more cars, than Jay Leno. And also we are going to buy new cars at some point relatively quickly, within 5-10 years, maybe, depending on how hard you drive your car. So we are the drivers of the economy. We're the ones that buy these durable goods and stuff like that. And so when our ability to buy things gets shut down, that last thing is really, really important on the slide there. There's very, very little hope that consumer spending, the us spending, is going to quickly end the depression. It's not happening. We don't have any money to buy big ticket items or anything. And so those things are just going to shut down, even the wealthy people, Andrew Carnegie and J.P. Morgan and such, they're not going to keep the businesses afloat on their spending because how many refrigerators do they need? 3, you know. So, all right, keeping going. We got one more point to make, and that's there. And then we'll talk about some messed up stuff. So, now, this is the last thing that drug the depression out a bit more. It does change. Hoover does change his tone, and he gets a lot of grief for this. I personally think that some of that is warranted, but it's not completely. So I kind of have mixed feelings looking back on this. People at the time would not agree with me. People at the time wanted to punch this guy. But President Herbert Hoover, was president at the time of the opening bit of the Depression, and Hoover did not think that the federal government should be involved in recovery. He has advice to give, and the second point there, you don't necessarily have to get it down. Just as long as you tell me that the federal government shouldn't be involved in the recovery is Hoover's take, you'll be cool on the essay question if you choose this one. And it shows up on the test, who knows. But Hoover didn't think that the federal government should be involved in recovery. And he's, from his position in 1929, he is making a logical point. Sorry. I get this cough looked at. I get allergies every year. They're funky. I don't like them. Anyhow, up to now, up to 1929, we have had market swings. We have market swings. And every other president up to 1929 did not involve the federal government in assisting in these market swings. The market has downturns, and we kind of hang out at the bottom for a little bit, and then we naturally climb back out, and then we'll have a peak, and then we'll have a downturn again. And the market swings. And so the president of the United States and Congress have never, up to this point, really preached that the federal government should get involved. Now, here's the issue, though, is those were small market corrections. The market has a dip where we hang out for a little while down there, like, 6 months, and things are kind of rough, and then we climb back out, or it only affects one aspect of the economy and not everything. And so Hoover, when he's looking at this, the federal government's never been involved. We always kind of have these swings. We get out of them. From his perspective, he would be the first president to get involved, and that's a scary thing to do. And so Hoover is going on precedent that we've never been involved with the market. And so he doesn't. Now, the United States has never faced an economic downturn like this. We have never done anything like this before. So Hoover should have been like, whoa, and he'll get there eventually. But, the United States has never faced anything like this before. So early in the Depression, Hoover is just going to give advice. Look, farmers, you guys are growing too much stuff, and so the price of corn and wheat and stuff and beef cattle, that's all super down. Well, supply and demand, you've got to lower the supply so demand goes up, the price goes up. So restrict output, stop growing so much stuff. Factories, if you guys want to stay in business, the biggest expense that you got, the one that you can really manipulate the easiest are wages. And so, maybe stop paying people so much. Banks, there is no federal insurance for banks right now. We'll fix that in a minute. But if a bank collapses, then the bank just collapses and your money's gone. So banks, Bank of America, Regions, First National Bank of Decatur, y'all should all help each other out. If First National Bank of Decatur is struggling, then they should be going down the road to Regions and, Bank of America and hit them up for some help. But we're not going to get involved. So now another thing, scribbly down because sometimes shows up for unemployment for the multiple choice, is Hoover also doesn't have much sympathy for the unemployed. Like all these thousands and thousands and thousands of people that lost their jobs, Hoover is going to be like, hey, you lost your job, then just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and move on. And so Hoover does not have much sympathy for the unemployed at all. He's not really there. And so you just need to work harder. You need to struggle. You need to go out there and pound that pavement and find yourself a job. There's no job. Well, you go find one. I don't care. There's the job tree. So Hoover is very, very much, and we have folks like this in politics today. Pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. Don't depend on anybody else and stuff like that. And even when the case is it's not their fault and stuff, especially in the Depression. So Hoover doesn't have much sympathy for the unemployed, and he will take some flack for that in the next lecture. So I'm going to stop there. We're a little bit short, uh, but I haven't been pausing and stuff like I usually do in class. So I've probably covered the same amount of material that we've covered in class. And so I'm going to pause right there. Please take notes on this. I should have said that at the beginning. But if you do have questions, please let me know. We'll cover those. You can shoot me an email or we'll cover them in class next time. I'll kind of ask, remind me maybe if you have questions and stop me before I start lecturing on probably Monday. So we'll see you in a bit.